I let my cousin use my guest house for free after her eviction. I found out she was listing it on Airbnb behind my back, charging $250 a night and pocketing everything. When I brought it up, she said, "You don't even use that space. You're being possessive." My aunt said I should be grateful she's making the property valuable. I shut it down. 2 days later, I got a visit from the city. Someone reported me for illegal rentals. I live just outside Asheville, North Carolina, about 20 minutes from town, near Bent Creek. My house sits on a 2-acre lot, quiet and wooded. I bought it 7 years ago after saving like crazy through my 20s. There's a main house where I live and a small guest house out back that I fixed up with my own 2 hands. I poured concrete, replaced siding, redid the plumbing. It took 2 summers. It was never meant to be rented. Just a space for friends or family visiting, maybe a hobby room someday. My cousin Melissa showed up crying on my doorstep last September. We aren't close. She's my mom's niece, and my aunt hasn't ever been stable. Melissa bounced between apartments, boyfriends, jobs, and cities. She's 32 but acts 22. The last I heard from her before this was a weird Facebook post about her car being stolen in Tampa. She had nowhere to go. She'd been evicted from wherever she'd been living in Charlotte. She was crying, saying she just needed a few weeks to reset and get back on her feet. I felt bad. Maybe I shouldn't have, but I let her stay in the guest house. Rent-free. She had a suitcase, a cat, and a bunch of anxiety. I gave her keys, bought groceries, and told her she could stay till Christmas. It was supposed to be temporary. Weeks turned into months. She said she was applying to jobs, doing some online work, maybe freelance writing. I didn't pry. She'd disappear most weekends and come back late on Sunday nights, but I figured she was seeing someone or traveling for work. I didn't ask too many questions. Then, one Thursday night in April, I got a text from an unknown number. It said, "Hey. Is the hot tub private? Do we have it all night or is it shared?" I texted back, "Wrong number." They replied, "Is this the Airbnb on Hemlock Trail?" Hemlock Trail is my street. Nobody else on this road runs an Airbnb. I was confused. I typed the address into the Airbnb search bar. And there it was. My guest house. My deck. My chairs. Photos of the fire pit I built. Even the coffee maker I bought her last fall. Listed as charming woodland retreat. Host name, Missy. She used a fake name. But the listing had my address. The booking calendar was full every weekend for the past 2 months. She was charging $250 a night with a 3-night minimum. There were 6 reviews. All 5 stars. All complimenting Missy's hospitality and the private escape with peaceful vibes. She had created a full side business, behind my back, out of the place I let her live in for free. I confronted her the next day after work. She was sitting outside on the guesthouse steps with her laptop, drinking wine. I walked up and asked straight out, "Why is my guesthouse on Airbnb?" She didn't even blink. She said, "Because I needed to make money." Just like that. Like it was normal. I said, "You're living here for free. And you're charging strangers $250 a night? Without telling me?" She shrugged. "You don't even use it. It was just sitting there." I reminded her that it was mine. I let her stay there out of kindness. She looked annoyed and said, "You're being possessive. You should be grateful I'm actually making the place valuable." I asked her how long it had been going on. She said since early February. Said she changed the lock code because guests needed their own access. I told her to take it down that night. She rolled her eyes, said, "Whatever," and walked back inside. That weekend, the listing was still up. So I shut off the Wi-Fi. I changed the gate code. I emailed Airbnb to report the listing. I told Melissa she had 1 week to move out. She cursed at me and said I was ruining her chance at getting financially stable. I didn't care. 2 days later, I got a visit from a city inspector. He asked if I was operating a short-term rental without a permit. I said no, explained what was happening. He said someone filed a complaint. Anonymously. That someone reported an illegal Airbnb running at my address. I asked if it was a serious problem. He said yes. There were fines for non-permitted short-term rentals. And worse, if I'd been operating it knowingly, it could affect my property taxes or insurance. I had to sign a statement saying I wasn't hosting anything, and now the property was flagged for follow-up inspections. That was her revenge. I gave her free housing. She turned it into a business. When I shut it down, she tried to burn the place down with me in it, figuratively, for now. But here's the thing. Melissa made one mistake. She left behind something she didn't mean to. Something that gave me exactly what I needed to make sure she'd never do this to anyone else again. And I used it. The city left me with a warning and a pamphlet about zoning violations. I had to spend the next 2 days talking to my insurance company, making sure nothing was affected. I was mad. Not just about the Airbnb, but the way Melissa acted like it was hers to do whatever she wanted with. Like I owed her something. But the worst part? My aunt. She called me that weekend. Melissa must have gone crying to her. You need to be more understanding, she said. Melissa was trying to help you. She made the place more valuable. I laughed out loud. Help me? She was stealing from me. She brought attention to the property, she said. Now you know it could make money. You should thank her. I hung up. The next day, Melissa packed her things and left. She didn't say goodbye. She just left a note on the counter in the guest house, sorry you couldn't see the bigger picture. And she took the damn coffee maker with her. I thought it was over. Then, about a week later, I got a piece of mail addressed to Missy. It was forwarded from the Airbnb account, but the post office screwed up and dropped it in my main mailbox. Curiosity got the better of me. It was a tax form, a 1099 from Airbnb. Her earnings from short-term rentals tied to my property. It said she made $14,680 in less than 3 months. I stared at the number. 14 grand. She didn't just stay here for free. She made more in a quarter than I did at my first full-time job out of school. And now it was documented. Under her fake name, but the same mailing address as mine. And then something clicked. If she didn't report that income properly, the IRS would be interested. I started doing some digging. She had linked her Airbnb profile to a PayPal account, that's how she got paid. I found it because she once logged into it on my guesthouse computer. I went back into the device's browser history, thank God I never cleared it, and boom, her full account info. Her email, partial bank details, even her username. She hadn't even bothered logging out. I also found a digital house manual she sent guests, an auto PDF with my address, her phone number, and the phrase operated by independent host to try and cover herself. But it still had enough evidence that she used my property to earn income under a false identity. I took everything and sent it in, first to Airbnb, with a request to fully remove the listing, then to the IRS tip line. I didn't even have to lie. I submitted the form with copies of her Airbnb 1099 and screenshots of her guest messaging, her fake name, the house rules PDF. And I didn't stop there. I sent the same file to her old job, the one she bragged about consulting for. Turns out she had recently applied to a full-time role with them. I made sure they knew she'd been running an illegal rental under a false name while claiming to be unemployed. But the best part? That tax info, because she used my address and didn't clarify it was a separate rental, there's a chance the IRS will assume I earned that money. Unless she corrects it, fast, it's on her to fix. So now she has to come clean. She has to either admit to earning that money illegally, Or let me pin it on her and let the IRS come knocking. Last I heard, she moved to a friend's place in Durham. My aunt stopped calling me. Melissa blocked me. But I'm watching from a distance. And I'm not done. About a month went by. I thought maybe that was it. Maybe Melissa would lie low, try to dodge the IRS, maybe get another sucker to let her couch surf until she could run the same scam again. But then something new landed in my mailbox. It was a letter from a lawyer. Melissa was suing me. At first I thought it was a joke, some kind of bluff. But no, it was real. She filed a small claims case saying I had wrongfully locked her out of her residence without due process and that I'd interfered with her business operations, causing her emotional distress and financial harm. She was asking for $5,000. I sat at my kitchen table, holding the letter, trying to breathe. She was out of my house. Out of my life. But now she was dragging me into court, claiming I had no right to evict her. She was trying to flip the whole thing around. I called a lawyer. A real one. Cost me a few $100 just to sit down with him. He told me this wasn't uncommon, people who overstayed their welcome and then used tenant rights to twist the knife. Even if they never paid rent. Even if there was no lease. But the Airbnb thing changed everything. He said, she can't claim tenant rights and run a hotel business out of the same space. That's a gift to us. So we gathered everything. The messages from guests. Her 1,099. The fake name on the listing. Photos she took inside the property and posted online without my consent. Even the guest review that said, thanks to Missy for letting us stay at her place while she was out of town. Proving she wasn't living there, just pretending to. But the real nail in the coffin was the Wi-Fi router log. I'd pulled it before she left, just in case. It showed devices connecting and disconnecting every weekend, new phones, new laptops. Clearly showing a pattern of short stays by strangers. Not someone living there. Someone running a business. The day of court came. Small claims court, downtown Asheville. I showed up in jeans and a clean shirt. Melissa walked in wearing a blazer like she was on Shark Tank, holding a folder. She didn't even look at me. She told the judge I'd thrown her out illegally. That I was jealous because her side hustle was successful. That she had made genuine efforts to contribute to the household by monetizing in used space. Then it was my turn. I handed over the packet. Explained how I let her stay rent-free. Showed how she made over $14,000 without permission. Showed the city warning. The guest reviews. The 1,099. The screenshots. The messages from guests thinking I was the host. Even the coffee maker theft. The judge barely let her respond. He said she had no legal standing to run a rental business on someone else's property. That she wasn't a tenant, she was a guest, and that her actions had crossed several legal and ethical lines. He denied her claim. She didn't get a cent. And I thought, that has to be the end. But a week later, my phone buzzed. A voicemail. It was Melissa. Her voice was shaking. You think you're so smart? You're gonna regret this. You have no idea who I know. No idea what you've started. I saved that voicemail. Just in case. Because something told me she wasn't done. 2 weeks passed after the court hearing. Things were quiet, too quiet. No calls. No letters. No surprise visits. I started to let my guard down. Then, one morning, I walked out to my truck and noticed something strange. The driver's side window was cracked. At first, I thought maybe a stray branch had hit it, but when I opened the door, I saw glass on the seat and a large scratch across the dash. Someone had forced it open. Glove box was open, papers thrown everywhere. I looked in the center console. Gone, my registration, my insurance card, and the extra gate remote for the property. I stood there, shaking. I called the sheriff's department and filed a report. There was no camera on the driveway. I'd always figured I lived far enough from the road to not need one. That changed real fast. I ordered a security system that day. Ring doorbells, motion lights, all of it. The deputy asked if I had any idea who might have done it. I said yes. She had the motive. She had the nerve. And now she had the gate remote. That night I barely slept. I kept checking the monitors. Watching the tree line. I felt like prey. The next night, around 3:15 a.m., one of the new cameras pinged. Movement near the guest house. I pulled the footage immediately. There, in grainy night vision, was a woman walking along the side of the guest house. Hoodie, backpack, phone light in her hand. She tried the door. It was locked. She bent down, probably checking under the mat. Nothing there. After a few minutes, she walked off toward the road. I sent the footage to the deputy. She agreed it looked like Melissa but said they couldn't do much unless she was caught on the property again, or unless she actually did something. So I made a choice. I wasn't waiting around to see what came next. I contacted the IRS tip line again, this time with the voicemail she left threatening me. I said I feared she was retaliating because she was being investigated for tax fraud. I told them I believed she might try to manipulate the situation again. Then I found her friend's place in Durham, the one I suspected she was staying at. I found it through one of the Airbnb guest reviews that mentioned a similar username connected to another listing down there. Took a little internet sleuthing, but I got it. Turns out, she had started hosting again. New city. New fake name. Same scam. I submitted the listing to Airbnb with a detailed report. This time I included the court documents, the video footage, and proof that she had been banned from using my property for rentals. The listing was taken down in 48 hours. But it didn't stop there. A week later, I got a call from a woman in Durham. She found my number from the city case records. Turns out Melissa had told her the guest house she was staying in belonged to her late grandmother, and she was honoring her memory by sharing it with travelers. The woman said, she told me I'd get half the profits if I let her use the place while I was out of town. I had no idea she was lying. Now Melissa had burned a new bridge. And this woman was furious. She pressed charges for fraud. Claimed Melissa had used her name to sign up for the listing. Airbnb cooperated. The woman filed a police report. Last I heard, a warrant was out for Melissa in Buncombe County for trespassing, and she was under investigation in Durham for online fraud. And me? I bought a new gate. Steel. Keypad entry. Cameras at every corner. I put in motion lights that light up the whole backyard like a football field. But the best part? 2 days ago, I got a letter from the IRS. It was confirmation they'd received my packet, and that they were launching a formal investigation. They don't play around. Especially not with unreported income, false identities, and fraud across state lines. Melissa thought she could scam me, twist the truth, and walk away. But she picked the wrong person. And I'm not done watching her fall. It took 5 months. 5 months of radio silence. No texts. No calls. No threats. I didn't know if Melissa skipped town or was just hiding, but I kept my cameras rolling and every alert sent straight to my phone. Then I got a call from an IRS investigator. He said Melissa had finally responded to their letters, well past the deadline. She tried to claim she didn't know she had to report Airbnb income because it was temporary help from family. But then they showed her the 1099, her account history, and the bank deposits. It was over $18,000 by the time they finished adding up the months and her second listing in Durham. She tried to claim she thought I was in on it. That it was a partnership. That I gave her verbal permission to operate the business and got mad when she made more than I expected. But that voicemail she left, threatening me after I won in court. I gave it to the investigator. That voicemail destroyed any chance she had. He said, "We deal with tax fraud all the time, but rarely this stupidly bold." They filed charges. Fraud. Tax evasion. Operating under false identity. Her bail was set low because she wasn't considered violent. But she had no lawyer, no money, and by now, every bridge she'd ever crossed was on fire. She had nobody left to bail her out, not even my aunt, who stopped defending her the moment she realized Melissa might get her audited for giving false statements about shared business income. And now, here's where I admit my own mistake. I let it go on too long. I should have kicked her out after the first month. I should have installed cameras from the start. I should have called the cops the second I found the listing instead of giving her a chance to shut it down. I thought I was being kind. But kindness without boundaries is how people like Melissa survive. So yeah, I made mistakes too. I gave her trust she didn't earn. I didn't ask enough questions. I gave her the benefit of the doubt over and over, and she turned it into a way to exploit me. But not anymore. She pled guilty to misdemeanor tax fraud. Got 18 months probation and a permanent flag on her name with the IRS. She can't open another Airbnb account, and if she tries to use someone else's name, it's automatic fraud. Her name's also blacklisted from several rental platforms now. The woman from Durham pressed civil charges and won. Melissa owes her over $6,000 in damages. She's back where she started. Only this time, no one's opening their door for her. I've since converted the guest house into my own personal workspace. Put in a mini gym. Built a soundproof room for music. I even painted over the old sign she'd made for Missy's retreat. It now reads, "No vacancy. Ever again." She turned my kindness into a hustle. So I turned her hustle into her downfall. And I sleep damn well now. Right next to my security monitor.